Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the Balanced Drives podcast, and I am Kirsten. And today I have another great guest that I would like to um, talk to today. So, hi Kate, why don't you tell us who you are and a little bit of your story?
Thank you so much for having me, Christian. Like I've said before we started this, I loved seeing your transformation and your journey, and then just everything that you're offering women out there these days. I think it's so needed and so valuable. And yeah, it's fun to see someone or know someone over social media for so many years and then finally interact with them. Like I feel like I know your history at the same time I've never met you before. So yeah, it's fun. Thank you for having me. It's a long
Sure.
story. Um, yeah, my name is Kate Whetsel. I'm a certified personal trainer and CrossFit level one coach, although not technically coaching CrossFit at the moment. Um, I own my own studio, Resolve Fitness, up in Seattle with my business partner. We do a lot of one-on-one training, and I primarily work with women over 40. It's just become a demographic that's really near and dear to my heart because being 49 now, there's been such a huge journey and transformation between my early 40s and now my late 40s, and I've gone through so many different struggles and changes that I want to be able to reach back and either help women who are at the beginning of that journey and kind of those hormonal transformation years, or reach to the women who have already gone through it and maybe didn't get the best guidance to help them have the most healthy, happy, vibrant lives possible. Yeah, and just have really good, deep health in all areas instead of just being really fit or really skinny or something like that. So I work with in-person clients, like I said, mostly, but I also do a little bit of hybrid or remote coaching so that I can work with people who are not in the area, but who want to work with somebody who understands some of the menopausal or perimenopausal challenges and changes and can help them make those appropriate and helpful changes in their own lives, both with their fitness and their lifestyle, so that they can, both enjoy being in their body again, continue to be an athlete, or just learn how to get really, really strong to offset any of the negative repercussions of hormone changes like osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease and some other fun metabolic changes that will happen if you're not attending to them. So,
Mhm.
been
Yeah.
doing this for 12 years now.
Oh,
So, yeah, starting
mm,
to feel like yeah, solid in my profession.
yeah, I'm sure you are. I mean, um, based on what I see on social media, what you're posting, what you're sharing, this is all really, really great advice. And obviously, I think our mindsets are really similar, like how we approach health and fitness. Um, but I
Yeah.
definitely wanted to talk to you because you have been through many of these processes that we're going to cover today, like you already mentioned, perimenopause and hormonal shifts and all that. So why don't we dive into your story too? Tell us a little bit about your background when it comes to fitness, um, eating, just this whole health lifestyle.
Um, well, I'm going to go way, way, way back, but I'll try to make it as brief and succinct as possible. When I grew up, I was a really heavy kid. I was very overweight. I had a lot of just even starting from a young age, emotional eating and just stuffing down emotions and kind of comforting myself. I think it was comforting myself through, my parents' divorce and then changing schools and right. It was when I was in my middle school years. So, of course, then there's that sort of hormonal transition influence there too. And that was something that I had to navigate and manage through my teens and even into my 20s a little bit. I discovered exercise, in my late teens and early 20s. And that helped me kind of regulate my body a little bit better. Like it was the time of life where I could exercise off what I ate, so to speak. And I really went through a few years of doing too much on one end or the other. Like there were years where I was heavily into restricting my food or being very exact about what I was eating and then exercising a lot. And then there would be other phases where I would tend back into emotional eating. I would gain a bunch of weight, then I would feel bad about myself, and then we would go back and forth in that cycle. And that probably continued through most of my 20s. and clear into my early 30s until after I had my first child. And after I had her, I remember feeling just very, very ill at ease in my body. Like after I had this tiny little baby, I'd gained 35 pounds and my baby was 6 pounds, like 11 ounces. I went, oh no, that's all. The rest of it's like body fat.
Oh,
Oh no. Um, yeah, so that was a little startling. I actually had a hard time figuring out what to do to help myself out. I did a lot of like the firm workouts at home. I don't know if you remember the firm
oh,
series. I
no.
think the heaviest weights were like 5 pounds, and it was like you used a step bench, and there was, just
Mhm.
a lot of that. And it helped me feel better, but it didn't really change anything appreciably. So I was really in the throes of doing that. And then I went horseback riding with a friend. And she had me ride her barrel racing quarter horse. And this thing was cranky that day. And so I put a little leg on the horse, asked it to canter. It decided it was going to bolt out of the ring and gallop across these like huge furrows in this Louisiana field, which was basically like baked clay. So I was terrified I was going to die. This horse was going to trip, that I was going to fall down, get smushed underneath it. So I bailed. And then I landed like perfect PLF landing, hip, shoulder, head. Not supposed to really hit your head. But at any rate, I ended up messing up my hip really, really badly. I had a giant hematoma. There's a lot of soft tissue damage, but nothing broken in my pelvis. A couple of broken ribs. And so I ended up needing to do physical therapy and a lot of just learning how to actually use my core, which I'd never done before. I've done tons of ab work, but I didn't know how to use my deep core. So in doing that, I started to feel a little bit better, make a recovery. And then I decided I was going to hire a personal trainer because I really needed somebody to help me sort of bridge the gap between that physical therapy world and then also just getting stronger and fitter again. So I started working with a personal trainer. And over the next like 9 months, we really helped get me out of pain, get me back into feeling strong and accomplished, lifting heavier and heavier weights. Um, and by the end of the year that I worked with her, I felt really, really, really good. But the thing that was so transformational for me wasn't just that I had like a better body and I was out of pain. It was that I really developed a deep self confidence during that year in what I could do and being able to change my own life and change my mind about the things that were happening to me that I didn't like. I was like, wait a second, if I don't like things, I can change them.
Yeah.
And I should probably throw in here that at the time I am a military spouse, and my husband's been retired for 4 years now. But we were stationed in Louisiana, and it was early on in our marriage, and it was very lonely. And it was a hard lifestyle because you're kind of at the whim of the Army. Whatever they give out that day, your husband might be gone. He might just not come home that night. He might come home super late. They might send him away on a whim. It's like you feel a little bit helpless. And I think I'd gotten into that a bit, and just felt helpless and lonely. And so by kind of being able to work with my body and make those changes, I grew a lot stronger on the inside, not just stronger on the outside. And that was such a huge transformational thing for me. It became what I wanted to do for the other military spouses that I knew, because we're all kind of in the same boat. We left our lives and our families and everything we knew to be with this person and then sort of dedicate our lives to supporting their profession, even if a lot of us had, our own professional kind of aspirations or backgrounds. And so I just learned that strength training was huge to my emotional welfare. Um, and so fast forward a few years, I did a lot of strength training. This was the Oxygen magazine era, when you did lift heavier weights, which was great, but it was always for an aesthetic sort of outcome.
Yeah.
So the lifting was very much for that. I ended up teaching boot camp classes and doing a ton of running at the same time that I was doing this. And this is after I'd had my second child. So I was feeling good. I'm like, look how skinny I am. You can see my abs and all this stuff. And I could run a ton. But I was very hung up on my appearance, and I was very hung up on the aesthetic quality of the lifting. I'm like, was I, doing enough? And if I didn't get, a certain number of compliments or something, oh no, I'm failing, something isn't going well. So that became sort of an unhealthy place in my head. But that changed once I started CrossFit about 3 years after that time. Um, it was just such a different environment. Like walk into a CrossFit kind of box, and there were zero mirrors, first of all. I was like, how do you know what you're doing if you can't see yourself? It's like, literally the first day I was like, uh-oh, now what? Um, and it was amazing because it made you have to feel your body. It made you have to attend to what was going on the inside, and pay attention to that rather than, hey, does this look good? Am I doing the right thing? And being distracted by, the appearances. It's also one of those environments where women, especially, are encouraged to be as strong as they can be, where it's not this aesthetic thing where you're trying to like work out to burn it off or something like that. It's like, yeah, let's go harder, let's go faster, let's lift more. And you're really celebrated for that. And that was also extremely liberating. I will say, when I first started CrossFit, that walking in was very scary because I had to kind of make a deal with myself that I would give myself leeway on getting bulky, because I was one of those people that's like, I can't do CrossFit. I'm going to get bulky. I'm going to get all big. And I'm scared of doing that. Right. I really was, but I was at a point in my life where I needed to make some changes. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give it 3 to 6 months. I'll just go in, I'll do the things, we'll work out, and if I don't like what's going on, I can change my mind and go back. And I was very pleasantly surprised that, that never happened. There wasn't like a bulking thing. There was a definition thing and a growing stronger, but the stronger was so much on the inside as much as it was on the outside. And was finally that opportunity to shed that working out to be, visually pleasing to somebody else thing. I was working out for me, and that was huge. So that helped me into my 40s, which is kind of like coming up to speed here. I started going through some hormonal changes early in my 40s and didn't know that was what was going on. And it really caused some chaos in my body at the time. And again, I didn't know what was going on. It started out with like periods being a little bit irregular, just being like 3 or 4 days later than they had been, which was always fun. It was like, oh dear God, I cannot be pregnant, because it would feel like that. And then I started having episodes where like my boobs were super swollen. And I was like, oh no, that's a sign of pregnancy. I'm going to be, something bad is happening. And some throughout the course of like my 40th and 41st year, it just continued. I mean, it just continued in these weird phases where I would swell, basically. I would just retain a lot of water. My boobs would be huge and very, very sensitive. And it was like my midsection just grew. I was like, I'm not eating differently. I'm not doing anything differently. What the heck is going on? I mean, even going running, I just remember that feeling of like fluid just sloshing around and feeling so disconnected from my body. Um, I ended up reading a few articles somehow. I don't even remember how I stumbled on them. And that was the first time that I even saw the word perimenopause. And they started to describe some of the things that happen, and that, the symptoms that I was having, which was a lot of this fluid retention and bloating, a little bit of moodiness, harder time sleeping, definitely waking up like just soaking wet sometimes for no good reason, that it was all kind of tied into being, in this case, more estrogen dominant when that first like fluctuation of hormones started. And then, so I kind of learned to ride that wave a little bit, and understand that sometimes I was going to be going through those periods where I was going to be holding on to water a little bit more, having more sensitivity in my body, and recognizing that that was more of a hormonal thing, that it was like I was doing something wrong. It didn't make it any more fun. I just learned to wear like some looser clothing. But I also learned that I couldn't do CrossFit and go running on the days I wasn't doing CrossFit, because it just actually made me bloat even more and get even bigger and get even more sore and get even more tired. And it was like, I was so confused because it felt like I was doing everything right, right? Like, okay, I'm supposed to be working hard and burning things off. Like, why is this not working? Um, and I didn't recognize how much we need to like sometimes scale back and calm our systems down a little bit until I discovered it on accident when I like had another injury and then I couldn't work out for a few weeks and all I could do was like take my dog for a walk. And I shed like 6 pounds of fluid and felt a million times better just from like toning everything down.
Yeah.
That was my first glimpse into, the hormonal chaos and transition that is, perimenopause.
Yeah. What did your training look like? Can you give us like 1 week's workouts? What did you do back
Yeah.
then?
Oh gosh. Okay. So at the time, I had started CrossFit, but I hadn't let go of running yet. I had been doing a lot of like half marathon and 10Ks, and I was never fast, but I was always working on my speed kind of thing. So it wasn't just a leisurely jog. So on Mondays, I would go to CrossFit, and it would be probably like a squat and then a metcon afterwards. And the metcon could be 7 minutes long, it could be 20 minutes long. It just all kind of depended, but it was very high intensity. Like it was always going to be high intensity. You kind of can't off that. And then Tuesday I would go running and I'd run like, anywhere between 3 and 6 miles.
How much
Wednesday I'd go
time
back
was
to
that? Can you tell us time wise,
what's
like 3 to 6 miles? How much did it take you time wise?
oh 30 to 60 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Minimum of 30. That was like my bare minimum on running. Like if it wasn't 30 minutes, it didn't count in my head.
Yep.
I'm sure you can relate to that mentality, right?
I remember it like mine was like 60 minutes. If it was 57.46, like, nope, I'm gonna just run in front of my
No.
house until I hit that 60 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to keep going around the block until I get my goal or my 6.2 miles or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. So
Um,
next
and
day.
then I go back to CrossFit on Wednesday. And because CrossFit was closed on Thursday, I would go running on Thursday, and then I do CrossFit on Friday. And sometimes I would try and get a really long run in on Saturday. And then I would take Sunday off. So I was just constantly throwing my body through this like very high intensity kind of breakdown kind of state without ever giving it any rest time to rebuild. And it didn't feel good, but I thought it was what I was supposed to be doing. Um,
Yeah, makes sense.
but
So many people still think that, and that's the message we get, right? Just
yeah,
have to
yeah,
do.
and yeah, it's been such a valuable experience too because it's easier to relate to other people and understand where they're at, and that it can be very scary to let go of that need to do the high intensity, and to think that you've got to crush yourself in order to get any result to reach your goals. But in the process of having to do all that walking and taking more of the time off and then slowly reintroducing CrossFit just to get like the strength training portion in as I was healing up from my injury, I started to find I was getting better results out of my CrossFit time. I felt better in general. I was keeping weight off. I wasn't having the same massive fluctuations, with my hormones, even though they were still kind of there. It wasn't extreme. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm onto something. Maybe this is a better way of doing things.
Yeah.
And that has worked really, really, really well
Okay.
over the years is to manage the balance between exerting hard and then getting enough rest,
Mm.
and doing the lower intensity things for recovery.
Yeah. So is it that since that injury where you sort of accidentally figured out that you have to do less, that you started to do less? And if this is the case, tell us what is your schedule then? What was it like after you figured it all out?
Afterwards, I still flirted a little bit with like trying to do more, and then it would not work well for me, and so I would have to back off. But I would do 3 days of CrossFit, and one of those days was like kettlebell specific training, so it wasn't the same kind of intensity the whole time. I would take one day off, and then I would do CrossFit and kettlebell stuff on the Friday and the Saturday. So I would work out for 3 days, take one day off, work out for 2 days, take one day off. And that was a fairly successful pattern for me as long as I was kind of managing the weights that I was using and making adjustments if I didn't feel great, which I got better at doing, and a little bit better about communicating with my coaches as well. And sucking a little ego and being, I'm not being a wimp, but I need to do this for myself today. And please understand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they usually do. So,
Right.
yeah.
Are you still doing CrossFit or no?
At the moment, I'm not. This is another, I'm in late perimenopause now. So I've kind of like done a lot of things. I learned that I need to do a little bit less of the high intensity, high output stuff. And I need to do a lot more lifting to feel good. Just a lot more heavier strength training. So I did a few years where I was doing mostly CrossFit, and then I do a little bit of lifting on my own. So I do CrossFit like 3 times a week, and then lift twice by myself. Over the past couple of years, just because of like lifestyle changes and fatigue and all the other changes that can come along when you start to get towards the tail end of perimenopause. I mean, fatigue can be a really big factor. It just, your recovery becomes such a huge piece of your success, and being able to make progress and feel good, like the days off, and or the just, you're really being thoughtful about how much you're doing and how often. Um, and so that I've had to change things quite a bit over the last year, to where right now I'm just lifting and doing gymnastics skill work. By lifting, I mean like both weightlifting and working on Olympic lifting, because I was like, I'd like to get better at this, but I won't get better if I only do it every once in a while. So I'm going to actually like buckle down and follow a program. And same thing with some of the gymnastic skills. And I do a lot of walking right now. I haven't done any concerted cardio. I'm totally going to confess, in like the last 4 months since opening our studio, just because it just did not fit in with everything. Like I would love to be doing more, higher intensity, higher output stuff. But at the moment, I'm really learning to respect my energy. And there's a lot of energy going into running a business and coaching people well and doing a good job, being present for my family, being a decent human to other people, all that stuff. Sleep is huge. Not doing too much is huge. I'm always feel like I'm working with the scales. I'm like, is this about the right amount for right now? So I'm hoping that I get a little bit more in the recovery sense in the next couple of months, so that I can start to integrate maybe one more CrossFit workout a week. I'll trade it out for something else. I won't be on top, and get a little bit more of that high intensity output. Um, the CrossFit kind of thing, because it's fun. It's fun to be able to do. It's just right now, it's not working with my energy level and my lifestyle.
Yeah, it is very important to understand that CrossFit is super intense, and if you recover well, fine, but if you don't, you got to be honest, because it can really drain you, especially like if you're not 20 or 30 anymore. It
Yeah.
definitely can take a toll. And yeah, the lifting portion, I think it's totally cool. Like this is where I learned to lift. This is where I learned to do pull-ups. I even like
Right.
didn't realize that, oh, you gotta eat, right? Oh, that's so cool. Like CrossFit taught me a lot of these things. But as
Yeah.
the the high intensity portion of the metcons, I'm like, I'm not signing up because you gotta listen to stuff. And if you have the energy, if you feel good, then yeah, right. But a lot of people aren't
Yeah.
like that. A lot of people are really like spread thin. And one of the topics and one of the reasons why, and we're going to talk about that next maybe, is the nutrition part, because a lot of people are really under eating too while they're attempting those high intensity cardio things.
Oh
So
my
when you
gosh. Yeah.
went through those fluctuations yourself, what was your nutrition like?
I had been kind of on the, well, a little bit orthorexic, and like the clean eating, like literally the big C on the clean eating kind of campaign. So I was a little bit exacting and restrictive for a while there. And then I learned that I needed to let go of that too, that I was kind of driving myself crazy. I was kind of driving my kids and my family crazy. And yeah, so I started trying to eat like a normal person, and have a little bit of dessert, have a little bit of this. But it became more about fueling, and really protein and veggies and like complementary carbs, and just trying not to overdo it on, alcohol and sugar and things like that. Like having a little bit so that I could be a rational human who could spend time with other people too. Okay, that was a loaded statement, but anyway, anyway, but yeah, it's come around to where it's very much a fueling thing. And that's one of the other things I enjoy about the CrossFit community, is that it really encourages people to eat for fueling. There are some communities where they get a little crazy about their macros and things like that. And maybe that's not the healthiest mentality to be pushing on to your community. But I think for the most part, the eating for wellness, eating for performance, I love being around other CrossFit women because they're like, bring on the food. It's not about how little you can eat. It's always about like, all right, how much food are we getting in here today? And it's a really nice thing to be around.
Oh, I love that too. And I tell that sometimes to my clients when we are increasing calories with them, right? So they've been always eating
Right. Yeah.
1700. And then we're getting to like 2200s, and they're like, oh, I'm getting kind of scared now. I'm like, no, be proud of yourself. You're fucking grown ass person. Now, I really say that. You have to say that because they just don't understand.
I say it all the time.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
you're not a toddler. We can't keep doing this. And I want you to feel empowered as a result of eating a normal amount of food. Not like, oh my God,
Yeah.
my life is like always about restriction. That's not the way to be healthy.
Yeah, and you don't know what you don't know, and you have to experience eating more and like feeling how different it can feel than being on that constant restriction kind of thing. Like, and still to this day, I will sometimes bump up against certain messages in my own head. I'm like, oh, am I eating too much? I better check myself. Or when was the last time I ate? Oh, this might be too soon. I still have to kind of work through some of that old messaging. It's just easier to kind of like let go of. But I feel so much better when I am eating more, when I'm fueling myself, when I'm making sure that I nail breakfast and that all of my meals are pretty good size, like good size. But you don't know that until you experience it. And it can be really scary because you're like me walking into the CrossFit gym. What if I blow up? What if I get bulky? What if this like just backfires on me? Yeah, so it can be a tough thing to navigate, but oh my gosh, doesn't eating feel good? Like not just the physical act of eating, but the act of like, oh wow, I feel it, I feel energy, I feel my muscles, I can sleep better, like.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you the energy. And also just I had a conversation with one of my colleagues today who said that she's in a health profession as well. And she said that her periods have been like so good the past couple of years because she's finally eating enough. And she said this is what literally made the
Yes.
biggest difference. And we're talking like 2500, 2600 calorie range for her, right?
Yeah.
She's like, I'm
Yeah.
finally like having normal periods. And I would always like blame like, oh, the hormones, this and that. And yes, obviously, they do change and fluctuate mid-40s and so
Right.
on later. But also, what is the cause, right? Are we helping with our lifestyle? Are
Yes.
we not helping, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the calories matter so much for our hormonal health too. But did you ever track
Yes.
or count your calories?
Um, Not too much, mostly because I don't like counting. I do a lot of portion type counting, like Precision Nutrition shared the healthy hand, portioning. I use that forever. I still kind of use it. It's just now I'm better at eyeballing, or, if you have like weighed and measured things enough in the past, you can look at something and be like, that's roughly about the right amount, and be pretty confident that you're getting what you need to. So yeah, I probably could stand to track macros if I wanted a very like specific outcome, measurable specific outcome. But right now I don't feel the need to do it.
And everybody who, if you're not watching, come watch this video because Kate is jacked. You're absolutely shredded. You have so
Thank
much
you.
muscle in you. And I mean,
Protein, veggies, and heavy weights.
what's the secret?
Yeah.
Is it brown rice, white rice? Kate, tell me. Is it chicken? Is it beef? Is it 7 a.m.? Is it 6 a.m.?
Sourdough bread.
It's just,
Yeah.
I feel like we overthink the things that actually don't matter, such as
Yes.
like timing, exact timing, and the small details without even looking at the big picture, right?
You got to do your big rocks first. And then if you kind of get your big rocks organized, you can start doing the pebbles and sand, with the timing and the exact nutrients and the micronutrient content of X, Y, or Z, or the miracle food. I always love that one.
That's
So
a
I
good.
will ask people, like, they're like, should I be doing this or that? I'm like, are you getting enough protein?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. How about you start tracking your protein? Are you sleeping? Like, how is your sleep? Do you sleep more than 6 hours a night? Can you sleep more or less straight through? How's your stress level? Like, those things really count so much more than, how much of an avocado or, what I mean? Like, should I avoid all the grains kind of conversation?
Yeah, yeah. Is it a cod or is it a tilapia? Like this really does not matter. I've had that question too. Like,
Uh, like,
and
well,
why?
from a farming perspective, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
it- One really cool thing about lifting heavy weights and eating is, and I'm pretty sure you noticed, but maybe you could share with us too, that when you have, let's say, a day or a weekend where your eating is not so good, I don't know, it's some kind of party, graduation, wedding, um, ladies'
Extra
night out,
slice of
whatever.
cake. Yeah.
So, do you put on a lot of weight if you have like a weekend of quote unquote bad eating?
No,
No.
I might be a little bloated from the extra like sodium and sugar and things like that. Or if it's like more processed food, like, burger and fries or something like that, which I do eat, I might feel like, oh, yeah, okay, waistline's a little tighter today, but it's just my digestion needing to play catch up. But no, not at all. And it's just like, it's nice to like just get back to the gym, get back to business as usual on Monday, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah,
let it roll.
exactly. It's a muscle that actually allows you to do that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's once you have established that muscle and got had it on your body for a while, it really makes that so much easier. It just makes, maintenance easier.
Mm.
Like, so when you do have little periods of those deviations, it doesn't throw you way off. I mean, yeah, you might feel a little bloaty, a little squishy or something like that, but you don't have like a massive change in your body composition. You don't gain a ton of weight. Like your muscle is still using the fuel and, just it's more metabolically active, but it feels good.
Yeah,
Throw that one in there too.
yeah. Do you follow Jordan Syatt? Do you know
A
who?
little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
He wrote a really great post yesterday, and he was talking about, yes, weight loss, we need calorie deficit, obviously, right? We cannot kind of argue with that. But for
Yeah.
to maintain that new body weight or fat loss that you accomplished, the number one thing is just move. And that's true. Like lift weights
Yeah.
and walk. That's your main maintenance strategy. And of course, you cannot eat like an asshole, but if you have the foundations in place,
No.
just focus on movement, it's not that hard. It's really,
No, and you learn, if you can do that and just get into the pattern of doing those things, you learn how to make adjustments as you go, where you're like, oh, wait a second, I am starting kind of an upward trend. My clothes are fitting a little tighter, more consistently around my waist. What do I need to adjust? Do I need to like maybe scale back on a little bit of dessert or something like that? And you just learn to navigate those waters of maintenance a little bit more directly. And yeah, the muscle just helps support you in doing that so that you have that more constant calorie burn. Um, but then also, for women in their 40s, like we gotta put on muscle. Like, we gotta get it, we gotta keep it because, between the last couple of years of perimenopause and the first couple of years of being postmenopausal, there is a massive loss of lean tissue unless we are doing something to mitigate that change. Just with the loss of estrogen and the changes, we just become a little bit more like protein catabolic in the body. It starts to break down the protein and use it for energy rather than using fat for energy like it had before, maybe a little bit more effectively. So we have to like up our protein, up our, weight training and stuff to help mitigate or kind of blunt that hormonal effect too. So in terms of maintenance and in terms of you want to have like a body composition that you are comfortable with and happy with through your menopause transition and beyond, having that muscle and creating it and working hard to maintain it is going to be essential. It's a non-negotiable. I know people don't always like to hear that, but it is really an absolute non-negotiable. You have to lift weights. If you don't lift weights, you're going to suffer. It's kind of like end of story.
Yeah. So after your own weight fluctuation during your perimenopause years, have you been able to maintain pretty much the way you were? Yeah.
For the most part, yeah. I stick in a ±5 category. So I kind of have a mid-range and a range that I consider to be like a comfortable place. And I'm usually within ±5 of that, depending upon what phase of life I'm in, like how active I am, what else is going on, am I healthy, things like that. I don't weigh myself right now. I used to weigh myself every day. I used to, when I was in my 30s, especially, I would weigh myself and then like lift up my shirt and check out like how flat my stomach was. It was not a good, healthy place for my head to be. First, I let go of the scale, and then I kind of let go of the needing to check my abs to see if I was okay thing. Which is important because, as you have like weird hormonal fluctuations where your water weight does change, that could be really discouraging. But I kind of let go of it and I go a lot more by how I feel, how my performance is. I do listen to my clothes. My clothes tell me a lot. So if I do start to feel like, things are a little bit consistently tighter, then I'm like, oh, I need to probably make some adjustments, either like walk a little bit more or just like dial in my extras, not have quite so many extra snacks and nibbles and treats and things like that. But it's been pretty maintainable. And I really do credit that to just being in motion most days. I am lucky enough to have a job where I am upright and moving around most of the time. I'm on my feet. I don't sit at a desk all the time. And I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. And I to absolutely feel for everybody who has a desk job and does not have a choice about that fact, that does make things a little bit tougher. But just lifting weights has made it possible to maintain a strong, healthy physique and not have to worry about big weight fluctuations. Or if it does fluctuate, I can usually associate that with some sort of just like hormone shift, whether that's a big estrogen spike or a big progesterone spike, because they'll both make you hold water. I have learned. It's been easier after kind of like hitting regular balance of fueling and moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these fluctuations are so normal too. And that's why it may be a better idea to not jump on the scale all the time. I mean, if you're actively working on your weight loss, then it is one good way to see if things are working or not. But if you want to maintain, I don't think you have to get on the scale every day and see, and especially if you tend to be a person who gets really, what's the word, triggered maybe by the number.
That's a perfect word. Yeah.
It just might be better to relax around and understand that, especially female bodies fluctuate quite a bit. And it can be, the factors are, there's so many of them. Like, are you constipated? Did you drink?
That's always my first one. I'm like, when was the last time you pooped?
Yeah. Like, did you have alcohol yesterday? Did you, one thing that I always, every time, this is like, every time when a client tells me that they had a Chinese food yesterday, I know for sure the weight is up tomorrow. It's just something about Chinese food. It's probably the super high sodium.
Yeah. Probably some MSG just makes you go bloop.
Yeah. That's why maybe your head is hurting you. But anyway, the
guaranteed.
Yeah, the scale obsession is not it's not a good thing. It's so unnecessary.
Yeah, and it's tough because if you do, completely manage your weight with the scale and not necessarily with, strength training and fueling and things like that, you can actually be like sabotaging yourself, because if you're so obsessed with losing weight or keeping weight off, if you're constantly restricting calories and not fueling yourself well and not lifting, then you're losing muscle. And so, and I know, this is your business. Like the whole dieting thing, you're losing muscle while you're dieting rather than building muscle and just losing fat, which then starts to backfire. I'm going to just reinforce this specifically as you're going through menopause and that transition. If you are losing muscle mass, you're making it easier for your body to store fat. And so most of us don't want that to be the outcome. So it's like, okay, well then, let's not do crazy diets. Let's really dial in our protein intake. And I'm going to say it again, such a broken record, go lift some weights.
No, you can't say that enough, I think. Important. So are these the exact same things that you have to tell to your clients? Is this a constant ongoing conversation? Yeah.
For many of them, yeah, especially ones who've been really indoctrinated into diet culture. And at my age, when we were growing up, we grew up when we were kids with like the Special K commercials, like only 100 calories a bowl and you can't pinch an inch on me kind of thing. And skinnier was always better, and muscular was not a thing, until I don't know, probably my 30s, honestly, when the Oxygen magazine thing came on the scene and that figure contest and bikini contest. But then it became, yes, muscle, but like super lean, look of that stuff too. And then also, boot camps were a big thing. And that was a big transition as well over the last, between my 20s and 30s. That was a big thing. Spin classes, like all of those, like hard, heavy burn. And then it was reinforced, like go have your salad and eat as little as possible, and then go work as hard as possible. So a lot of women associate weights with bulking and, boot camp, Peloton, and restrictive diets with being skinny. And so there's a lot of that undoing of that messaging that I bump up against on a regular basis, and sort of coaxing women into lifting weights and helping give them the opportunity to learn how to feel their body in a different way, to feel powerful and vital, to feel athletic if they never did before earlier in their lives. That's huge. And that's one of the tools that I use, along with just trying to educate, on a very basic level. Like, here's why you need protein. This is what it does in your body. These are the consequences if you're not getting enough. This is why you're experiencing this. This is why, doing everything that you had been doing for the last 20 years isn't working anymore. What changes need to be made so that you can get the results that you want and feel better inside, feel better on the outside. I mean, all of the above.
Yeah. So of course we've talked about the importance of lifting, getting enough steps or just like everyday movement, rest. Yeah. So what would be some of the other things you would add to this list to make the transition through perimenopause and menopause easier?
Oh my gosh. Talking with other women. Finding community, finding other people who understand, getting a really good physician. Like, there are a lot of doctors out there who still have, even OBGYNs, who have not had a ton of training in terms of helping women through menopause and with their options, whether that's hormone therapy or different kinds of like naturopathic supplementation. It's like, not everyone can take hormones, but it can be a huge, huge helpful tool for women to be able to just navigate or sort of like, I'll use the word mitigate their symptoms a little bit. So it doesn't fix everything to take hormones, but it can sure make a lot of things feel better and easier. I started hormone therapy when I was 3 years ago. We'll just do that. I can't even do math anymore. Because I'd gone through a period of time where I stopped being able to sleep. I was having a period. It keeps doing that. Sorry. I wasn't able to sleep. I was having a period like every 2 weeks. I was a nightmare. I was like a zombie. I was having heart palpitations at night. I thought I was having a heart attack. I was a mess. And so I actually read Amanda Thiebb's book. Have you heard of Amanda? And her book is Menopocalypse. And that was perfect. It was such a good read for me at that point in time. And I realized that I probably would benefit from getting some hormone therapy. So I went and found, researched somebody who actually had menopause specialist in their title under, an OBGYN clinic, and talked with her and started hormone therapy then, which was a combi patch at the time, both estrogen and progesterone. Just stick a little sticker on your body. Did that for a few months, and then I needed to make some shifts because it wasn't quite enough. But at any rate, that made it so I could sleep. I stopped having heart palpitations. I stopped having as much insomnia. I felt like myself again. My periods leveled out a little bit, and it just made everything doable again. I felt like myself. So I would say that that's a really big one when you start to experience a lot of symptoms. And sometimes women are like, I don't know, am I going through perimenopause? And like, I think a good definition is, I don't really feel like myself and I don't know what's wrong. That's sometimes enough of an indication that it's something to be examined, and talked about with the doctor. So having a good physician, getting hormone therapy, if it's helpful to you and your symptoms, will make the rest of your life more livable. And make it easier to do things like go to the gym and strength training, go take walks and eat reasonably. Because if you're not sleeping and you feel terrible all the time, then you're often going to want to eat junk food and other things, and it just has that negative cascade. So I would say that's a big one. Learning how to delegate things and have really good boundaries is enormous. And I work with, this is a constant one, is near my heart. And also because of all the women that I work with, they're such amazing, hardworking, thoughtful people, who try and like perform their very best at work in all of their different professions. And they really demand a lot from themselves and expect the best from themselves. And they also expect that in the way that they deal with their family and volunteering for community events and then all the things. And then they can be very hard on themselves because, oh, but I'm not getting my workout in, or I can't lift that much, or I'm eating too much, or I'm gaining weight and things like that. It becomes kind of an opportunity, as you start going through this period of life, to look at where you can start sharing the load a little bit more. To be able to say, okay, I need this time to go work out. And in order to get that time, I need your help with the kids, or I need you to, whoever it is, whether it's one of the kids or, a partner or something, I need you to handle the groceries. I need you to handle dinner, and just kind of wave the white flag on being the hero and doing it all, and ask for help, so that you can have that downtime and you can have that like self-care time. Because recovery and restoration are absolutely number one, at this point in life. And if you're not getting the sleep, if you're not coming down off the high stress lifestyle that you may be living in your 40s, where you're responsible for a lot of things, then you're not going to be able to like get to the gym and build muscle and feel good. You're just going to feel kind of wired and tired and chronically like high on cortisol, which again just really backfires on us. And so we need to ask for help. We need to be able to say, I cannot do it all. And that doesn't make me a weak person. It doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't make me a lazy person. It just makes me a person, and to take back a little bit of that nurturing and reinvest it in ourselves. I think that is probably the biggest piece.
Yeah, I love it. It's important. I don't know why there's like so much pressure on us. I think it just seems so natural. That's what everybody's doing. And if you see somebody else like juggling a million things, you think you have to do it too, right?
Yeah, or like you're less because you're not doing as much as they are, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all at the expense of your own health. So,
Yep.
and also like I have this impression that a lot of times people don't want to ask for help, but once they do, like other people are happy to help or take on some of the
Yes.
things, right? It's just this perception that I'm not supposed to ask for help, but why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to say no, and
Mhm.
not have it be a mean thing. Just like, no, I'm not able to do that. No, I'm not going to come to that event. No, just no.
Mhm.
That's a hard one too.
Yeah, and not even having to say why, right? It's a no. Like,
No is a complete answer by itself.
yeah, yeah. No, this is all really good advice, and I'm glad that you are giving it because you have two kids. Um, it's harder for me to speak to these things because I don't have kids, so it's good to hear from somebody who's going through this or has gone through this that it's doable. Okay.
It is, but it does take a lot of communication, and it was not easy to make the transition from being the person who did everything and took care of the kids and did all the things for them, and then tried to squeeze myself in there too, to saying, okay, no, you need to be more responsible for these pieces on your own. No, I'm not going to cook dinner every single night. Somebody else can figure that out too. I mean, and just beginning to delegate a little bit more of the household or lifestyle responsibilities. But it makes them better too, is the whole thing. I mean, if I'm always doing something for them, that kind of makes them invalids when they enter into real life, right? Like they have to learn how to do the things like, I don't know, clean a toilet bowl, cook a dinner,
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, it's a really
wash their own clothes.
right. Yeah, it's a really good point. Um, so is there anything that you are personally working on right now, whether it is any specific goal, strength related, or personal growth or certification or something?
Yeah. A few things actually. I've been really, it's another thing this point in life has been really good for is examining like my own trajectory. One of my clients used that a while back. She's like, I want to change my trajectory for the positive. I was like, that is beautiful. I am stealing that. But like, it makes you have to think about what you really want to get out of your life. You realize things are going by fast. With the menopause transition, you suddenly realize you're not going to be young forever. Um, and that, okay, well, if I want things to go differently for my future, what do I need to do now? What do I need to change? What do I need to think about so that I can have that different future that I want for myself? And so I've been in that kind of mode, last few months. It's been a transformational year, and in the next couple of years, I'd like to do the International Functional Fitness Federation. I always stumble on those words. Masters Athlete Championship. I would love to go to that and participate as an athlete. I went and watched a couple of my friends participate at the end of September. And it was phenomenal to see all these women who were like, I think the youngest one was 45. And they had women who were like, I think all the way up to 70. These phenomenal athletes who were like 60, 65, who were jacked. They're doing rope climbs and ring dips, and they're doing these barbell complexes with like 115, 125 pounds, whereas like a couple of squat cleans and a couple of front squats and a couple of shoulder to overheads. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do that right now. So that was very inspirational. It was like, okay, it gives you a positive place to want to work towards instead of working against aging or working against weight gain or working against, something else. It was like, wait, no, this whole aging thing can be kind of cool if I, really apply myself in that area. So I'm like, yeah, I'd like to see what I can do with my athletics. I'd like to see what I can accomplish. And so that's kind of on the horizon, maybe like 2025. But professionally, I would like to serve more women through the perimenopause transition and menopause to help them learn to ditch like the old diet psyche, learn to ditch, the punitive, self-restrictive, just grind harder sort of thing that is going to work against their health and is already working against their mental well-being, but it's going to work against their deep health as well in the next like 5-10 years if they don't change. I would love to like help women get into the gym and get excited about feeling powerful in their body and not just looking at it as like an ornament or something that's supposed to be appreciated from the outside and be pleasing to the eyes. Like, no, let's start feeling ourselves. Let's start digging into our own deepest potential. If there's things that women have wanted to do, but they've put it sort of on the back burner. I'm like, no, now's the time. Now's the time. It's like, let's get going. Let's use this time to be purposeful instead of, waiting for fate to decide what we do or don't do with ourselves. So just working on some programs right now. Don't have anything laid out or definitive, but I'm, yeah, working on some stuff that hopefully is going to come out in 2024 with some in-person programs and then potentially hybrid or remote programs as well.
Okay. So what are the options to work with you if anybody's interested?
If people are in the Seattle area, they can come and see me in person. But I also, like I mentioned before, have hybrid options, which means having an appointment in person either once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, to kind of do like a check-in or learn new skills or something, and then have their own program to follow on their own. Or to do completely remote coaching is also an option where, we live far away from each other, but I do their programming. I do all of the coaching for them too, not just in terms of like, here's your workout, go do your workout kind of thing, but like, okay, how is your sleep? How is your stress? How is your, where's your mental state at? What's going on? What can I help you tweak or change in order to start moving towards a more healthful kind of lifestyle? Come off some of the high cortisol, super high output sort of way of doing things so that their health can be restored. And then they can also make better body composition changes. If they're already at a 9 in stress and I'm trying to add exercise stress on top of that, I'm not doing anyone any favors. So sometimes we have to like calm them back, their systems back down in order to regroup it. Kind of like what I learned with the hard way with my injury in CrossFit and walking.
Yeah, that's very true. You cannot pile more stress on top of stress and expect better results. It kind of works,
right.
but then it doesn't anymore later on.
Yeah. And I'm at the point in life where it does not work. It just doesn't work anymore. Like you get somewhere in your 40s, depends on everybody, but all of a sudden the grind and hustle comes to like a screeching halt and it just does not work.
And that's the point, I think, where a lot of people find find you or find me when they're like, I have tried to do everything. What am I doing wrong? And it's such a frustrated and like really sad place to be when you honestly, and I believe when these people say that I have tried all the freaking things. So it's not that they're lazy, it's not that they don't want to put in the
work. Oh my
work.
gosh, it's like the opposite half the time.
So it's there is a way out, but it's not the fast way that a lot of people are thinking it is. It's just not. It takes years sometimes to get to a better place.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things I really do try and communicate, right up front is that we're talking months, maybe years. We're not talking weeks, maybe months. Is that like we really need to look well ahead. But then, you zoom out and see where you want to go to zoom back in and break it down into those daily and weekly steps that you're taking that will guide you to that place. And that's my job, is to be able to see that, where someone's starting and where they want to be in, and to be able to help them navigate those waters and have sort of a roadmap for getting there. That's totally my job. That's what I do. And then trying to help them keep the faith as they're doing the daily and the weekly stuff. But yeah, it takes a lot of time. It's not real sexy at all. And I get pretty upset with all the ads out there for like, just take the supplement and you'll be better. Again, God, I gotta get better AirPods. Just take the supplement and you lose this X amount of weight and balance your hormones in 12 weeks. Or follow this diet program, this exercise program, and all of a sudden you have a miracle body in 6 or 12 weeks. It's such a disservice. It's just it's not grounded in any sort of actual science. It's like it's destructive.
It is, and it's, in a way, it's just like a really bad thing to do because you're taking people's money and you're wrecking their health, right? And of course I understand this part too, that if a person purchases this program or a supplement fix or whatever thing, it is their responsibility because they're the ones who took out the credit card and bought the thing. But there's two sides to it, right? Because also the media and the brainwashing can be really, really, really strong. And you just, they are very convincing, and the marketing language is awesome, and their marketers are top notch. So
yes, they are.
Right? Yeah. So like so
Absolutely.
smaller businesses like us with a message that is the opposite, like we gotta like fight really hard to get this real message
It
through.
is a hard fight.
Mhm.
Yeah. But it's also one I'm, willing to fight.
Same.
And I just feel ethically committed to. Like I really can't get behind anything that overpromises and that leads people down a less healthy path. Or it's why I do coaching instead of just like writing programs in mass marketing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just not what I'm doing,
Mhm.
or what I feel good about doing.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah. All right. We are coming to the end of this episode today, but do you have any words you would like to wrap this up with?
Oh my gosh. Well, first, thank you. And second, I hope I didn't talk too much. There was some storytelling that would have fit
That
long
was
there.
the goal.
Uh,
To talk a lot.
okay. All right. Well, then, good. Mission accomplished. No, I would say um, really, there's a lot of things that you are going to go through, as you go through the perimenopause transition. And first, like, listen to your gut. If you aren't feeling right, you don't need a doctor or anybody else to validate that your body is changing and that you need something different. And find somebody who's going to listen to you and who's really going to take you seriously. If that's not someone in person, there are lots of online and virtual doctors who specialize in menopause. Uh, Menopause everything. You just need to make sure that they're NAMS certified, so that you're getting the real deal, and somebody who's been blessed off. Get help, get support, but also it can be really scary to like have these things happening in your body and not be able to control them, and understand that it's sort of in a way the end of your youth and the beginning of this other part of your life. But that aging doesn't have to be scary. You can make of it what you want to. And that when you kind of come to that crossroads of like midlife and menopause, it gives you this gorgeous opportunity to choose where you want to go, to like examine how much of your life has just been happening and you've been going along with it just because it just the momentum of life sometimes picks you up and carries you. But it's this opportunity to be like, wait, what do I want to have happen with the rest of my life? Who do I want to be? What do I want to make sure that I either learn or do or see? Or how do I want to serve? And really allow yourself to grow into those things and become, more of yourself and more of that person. Um, and to use the change time as an opportunity to grow forward into more of what you want to be. And lift weights. Please lift weights. Yeah, that's like, it's like go lift weights. It's like always my thing.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Such great advice. Like it doesn't have to be terrifying and like feeling like we have no say in this at all, right? We have a lot of say in how
Yeah,
these years go.
we do.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah. And there's lots of people out there to help and understand. You just have to know who to reach out to.
Perfect. All right, Kate, thank you so much for chatting with me
You're
today.
welcome.
Really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
And I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
Thank you.